one of you is the daughter of Camila Durrani.
You would have thought one example would be enough for them. Let's see if you can convince them. Pick it up.
The film kicks off in Afghanistan, where we meet a guy named Amir, chilling near the market with a cup of coffee. Once he's done sipping, he heads back home, which isn't too far away. When he gets there, he strolls into his backyard, a spot mainly used to keep his dogs. Amir then orders his men to open the dog cage, revealing a shocking sight. Some American soldiers are being held hostage. Turns out, Amir is the feared leader of a local terrorist group. To keep his dominance intact, he announces that one of the American soldiers will be killed today. It's revealed that Amir has this gruesome routine where he executes one hostage every month. The captives are dragged to the market, where Amir plans to stone a U.S. Army captain named Susan to death. When Amir hands a stone to one of the American soldiers and the soldier refuses, Amir coldly shoots a random civilian to make his point. Left with no choice, the soldier starts throwing stones at Susan. But just when things look bleak, 2 helicopters swoop in to rescue the hostages. Susan gets pulled into one of the choppers while the others are left fighting off Amir's men. In the chaos, Amir manages to shoot down one of the helicopters, forcing the rescue team to retreat with only Susan on board. Sadly, the hostages left behind are executed by Amir and his gang. A few months go by, and we see Susan back in the military, talking with a high-ranking official. He offers her more time off, but Susan prefers staying active, so she starts training hard at the military base. Meanwhile, in a Pakistani international school, a girl named Badia, who happens to be the daughter of Pakistan's education minister, is chilling in the restroom with her friends when gunshots ring out. A group of terrorists, led by none other than Amir, has stormed the school. Badia quickly leads her friends to the roof for safety. Amir, searching for Badia, questions a teacher who lies, saying she's absent. Unconvinced, Amir orders a search for her. Realizing they could be caught, Badia and her friends make a run for it, but they bump into one of the terrorists. Quick on her feet, Badia grabs the terrorist's gun and shoots him dead. Amir sees this and tries to calm her down, but Badia isn't having it and tries to shoot him too, running out of bullets in the process. Amir's men then capture her friends while Badia puts up a brave fight. As punishment, Amir has 2 of her friends thrown off the roof. Eventually, Badia and her friends are taken to a hidden location in Afghanistan, held hostage because of their parents' political status. Meanwhile, her mother, the education minister, watches a video of Amir demanding a hefty ransom for each captive. Back at the American military camp, Susan shows off her combat skills, impressing even the toughest soldiers. After training, she's approached by a military commander named Travis. He offers her a mission near the Pakistan-Afghanistan border, aimed at rescuing kidnapped girls from Amir's clutches. The mention of Amir's name reignites Susan's determination, and she agrees to join the mission. Arriving in Pakistan, Susan is picked up by a driver named Abbas and taken to a hotel. She meets up with Travis's team, who plan to pose as international medical staff to get into Afghanistan unnoticed. Later, Susan meets with Travis and Pakistan's education minister, who urges them to rescue Badia and the others, promising coordination with local border guards. Before the mission kicks off, Susan contacts an old friend named Awina, a former Taliban member she once saved. Awina agrees to help locate Amir's hideout. The next day, Susan, Travis, and the team head into Afghanistan, disguising their intentions as a humanitarian mission. At the border, Afghan soldiers stop their truck. Abbas, playing the role of a humble driver, claims they're carrying medical supplies. Suspicious, the soldiers start searching the vehicle, but a major, secretly working for Badia's mother, intervenes just in time. Meanwhile, Amir tries manipulating one of the hostages into delivering a message to the police in exchange for freedom. The unsuspecting student agrees, only for the letter to trigger a massive explosion at the police station, leaving Travis and his team convinced it was an ISIS attack. Susan brings intel on Amir's armory, prompting the team to plan an assault. That night, they gear up for battle, but things go south quickly. During the skirmish, one of Susan's team members is killed, and Travis gets hit as well. Forced to retreat, they barely escape with their lives. The next morning, Susan and her team meet the major again. this time to bury their fallen comrades. After a long and exhausting digging session, everyone took turns chipping away at the ground. Susan, completely drained, kept digging mindlessly until her friends had to shake her out of her trance and pull her back up. A few hours later, as Susan sat lost in thought, she suddenly heard voices from the main room. When she went to check, she saw the Minister of Education deep in conversation with some members of her team. He explained that he had come all the way to Afghanistan just to hand over a ransom of $10 million to free Badia. But when the money was inspected, they realized it was fake. The minister clarified that Amir's group wasn't educated enough to tell real cash from counterfeit bills. After that, he bid farewell, leaving the responsibility of rescuing the hostages, including his daughter, entirely on Susan's team. Meanwhile, Badia was summoned to Amir's room. He bluntly told her that she was the bravest woman he had ever met and that her fearlessness was almost admirable. Despite being held captive, Badia remained defiant and refused to show any fear toward him or his men. Amir then dropped a bombshell. He wanted to marry her. According to him, courageous parents raise strong children, and he wanted his offspring to be just as fearless. But there was a catch. If Badia refused his proposal, he wouldn't hesitate to kill all her friends. Back at Susan's hideout, tension rose when an unfamiliar vehicle approached. The team braced for an attack, but it turned out to be Awina, whom Susan had secretly asked to come. Once inside, Awina revealed crucial intel. Amir's group was demanding the presence of a religious leader known as the Sheikh. However, there was a problem. The Sheikh was currently held captive by a rival terrorist faction. If Susan's team could free him, Amir would grant their demands. With no other option, the group agreed to take on this new mission. Before moving forward, Susan asked Awina for her phone to make an urgent call. Unfortunately, Awina claimed she hadn't brought it, fearing it could be tracked. Later that afternoon, the Sheikh was being transported in a heavily secured vehicle. At the same time, two of Susan's team members were monitoring the convoy via drone. Once they identified the transport route, the two immediately moved in to intercept. They got into position quickly, but just as they were about to attack, Alice spotted a bus approaching from the opposite direction. Within moments, the convoy carrying the Sheikh arrived and Susan's team sprang into action. They forcefully extracted the Sheikh from the vehicle, but just as they were about to escape, enemy reinforcements arrived, launching an ambush. As the gunfire intensified, Susan and another member desperately tried to free Alice, whose leg was trapped under the bus. Despite their best efforts, they couldn't get her out. Knowing time was running out, Alice urged Susan to leave her behind rather than risk everyone getting caught. Meanwhile, the shootout raged on, and during the chaos, Abbas was fatally shot. His death hit his younger brother, Malik, especially hard. After Abbas was buried, Susan tried her best to comfort Malik, encouraging him to stay strong. As the team regrouped, breaking news flashed on the TV. Alice had been captured. But the nightmare didn't end there. In a horrific turn of events, the enemy executed Alice on live television, sending shockwaves through the group. Overcome with anger, Susan stormed into the next room, only to find Awina using a phone. This immediately raised red flags. Awina had previously claimed she didn't have one. That's when it clicked. She had betrayed them. Susan wasted no time. She knocked Awina unconscious and checked the phone. Sure enough, Awina had tipped off Amir's group, revealing their location. Realizing they had little time before Amir's men arrived, Susan instructed her team to leave the bag of fake money behind and let the enemy take both the cash and Awina. Shortly after, Amir's men arrived, finding an unconscious Awina and the supposed ransom. Assuming they had secured what they came for, they took Awina and the Sheikh, then left. Little did they know, Susan's team was watching everything from a distance. With Amir's group on the move, Susan ordered her team to track the location of a phone hidden inside the bag of money. By doing so, they could pinpoint Amir's base. A few hours later, the tracker led them to an underground hideout. Once there, Amir's men locked the Sheikh in a room, instructing him to freshen up. He was about to officiate Amir and Badia's wedding. As the ceremony loomed closer, the Sheikh asked Amir who he was. Amir explained that his parents knew the Sheikh, though they had never met personally. Meanwhile, outside Amir's headquarters, Susan and her team were already in position. Moving quietly, they eliminated a guard and discovered a tunnel leading underground. Without hesitation, they slipped inside, moving stealthily to scout the area and locate the hostages. Eventually, Susan found the prisoners locked up, The team regrouped to exchange intel, but there was still no sign of Badia. Susan then ordered her team to plant explosives throughout the compound while she continued searching for Badia. She also coordinated with reinforcements, giving them the exact location so they could arrive within the hour. Meanwhile, Badia was reluctantly preparing for the wedding, doing so only to keep her friends from being killed. The sheik was instructed to utter a single sentence: "You are officially married." However, he refused, stating that this was not in accordance with their religion. Amir scoffed, revealing that he had no belief in God or faith. Terrorists only used religion as a front. Realizing Amir had no real ideology, the sheik understood that he was dealing with a dangerous extremist. Despite his reluctance, the sheik ultimately performed the marriage ceremony. But in a shocking twist, Amir killed him immediately afterward. Amir despised religious leaders, viewing them as weak for always advocating peace. Elsewhere, Susan's team continued setting up bombs. But before they could proceed further, Amir's right-hand man discovered the counterfeit money and worse, found a phone with GPS tracking inside the bag. Furious, Amir turned to Awina, assuming she had betrayed him. Before she could defend herself, he shot her dead. Not long after, Amir's men began searching for intruders. One of Susan's team members was almost exposed when a woman tried to unmask her. Susan quickly stepped in, rescuing the captives and finally locating Badia. She instructed them to use the elevator to escape while she went after Amir. Eventually, Susan confronted Amir face to face. He was stunned to see her alive. After all, he had tried to execute her earlier. A brutal fight ensued, and after a tough battle, Susan finally overpowered and killed Amir. With the mission almost complete, Susan and her team prepared to leave. But just as they were about to exit, they discovered that one of their members was trapped under debris. Though Susan tried to free them, the injured member urged her to leave before the entire place was blown apart. Left with no choice, Susan and the rest of the team evacuated, bringing the rescued hostages with them. As reinforcements arrived, everyone was airlifted to safety. Just as Susan was about to board the helicopter, Malik hesitated, asking if she would be coming along. Susan reassured him that she needed to go back for their teammate. Without hesitation, Malik decided to join her. Before heading back into Amir's base, he turned on his favorite rock music. Then the film ended.